Hello and welcome to What's New in Aerospace. My name's Marty Kelsey. I host a television show for middle school students from here at the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Boeing, for sponsoring this program today. And I want to remind everybody watching that you can go to Facebook Live and submit questions. It is my great honor to introduce our guest today, NASA astronaut Jack Fischer. He spent 5 months on the International Space Station and conducted a spacewalk while he was there. Please welcome to the stage, Jack Fischer.
How you doing, Marty?
I'm good.
And we have a montage for the Air and Space Museum. It's kind of encapsulates the whole mission, some of the important pictures, and we just really appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk to the whole crowd in here and online.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. All right, so I have a video that'll come up here shortly. It's about 20 minutes, and I'll kind of talk over the video so you can see some of the cool stuff. And then at the end, we can do some questions. So let's get that baby started. Got to start with a cool, Star Wars type intro. And then, so we actually right now are launching and landing out of Kazakhstan, the Baikonur Cosmodrome. We have a 3-stage rocket called the Soyuz FG. All the green and orange stuff at the end is the rocket part. And then that white part at the tip, our module is actually inside of it. That's an escape system that can take us away from the rocket in case anything goes wrong. They build everything horizontally, then bring it out on a train, and then they rotate it vertical. It's kind of cool to see. So we have a lot of traditions when you go through Russia. This is me signing a book in Yuri Gagarin's office. We also sign the doors of the rooms that we stay in while we're down at Baikonur. And then we head out to the rocket. We wear a Sokol suit. It's a pressurized suit that keeps us alive in case there's a depressurization. And then we say goodbye to our family one last time through a couple inches of glass and make our final way out to a fully fueled rocket. Takes 8.5 minutes for us to get to orbit. There's 3 stages, as I said. Once that last stage actually kicks off, we have little toys inside the vehicle that are pulled down by gravity until you get to the 3rd stage, and then they start floating around and you know you're in space. It takes us about 6 hours to get to the International Space Station. Once I first saw it outside the window, Fyodor had to be like, Jack. I had to get back inside because we had some work to do. We had to dock. But man, oh man, when we got on the space station, to say that I was happy would be a massive understatement. I had to describe it to my wife in the only way I knew how, and I don't have a big vocabulary, so I had to use awesome. I think they have a clip of it here in a second.
But it's a burrito of awesomeness smothered in awesome sauce, baby. It's so beautiful.
That pretty much says it all. We had a lot of cargo on this space station. Obviously, for the space station to do all the science that it does, we need a lot of supplies. We also need a lot of science. So it was 2 days after I docked that we captured the SS John Glenn out of Orbital ATK, which is headquartered right here in Reston, Virginia. That baby was a special vehicle in that not only did it have all the cargo, but once we undocked this vehicle, it did 2 more weeks of science with experiments like this little guy that looks like a flying saucer before it re-entered and burned up in the atmosphere. We'll see if we can turn up the volume here.
In its release and the entire mission, it performed beautifully, a fitting testament to the legendary explorer and patriot whose name it bears. The performance is also a testament to the team that supported it throughout the mission. Every detail, from the flawless system operations to the perfectly labeled straps to a well-orchestrated symphony of cargo and science logistics. We can't say enough about the team we have the privilege to represent here on orbit, and want to send our best wishes on the final phase of its mission. Godspeed and fair winds, SS John Glenn. It has been an honor.
So it is cool that we're kind of the lucky few that get that last touch of these vehicles, but we had quite a few. 2 days after we said goodbye to the John Glenn, Peggy and I were alone on the US segment and had to capture SpaceX 11. Just the two of us, captured it, unloaded it, did the entire science complement, loaded it back up, and then sent it on its way. We had a pretty big gap there without a full crew, but thanks to the great ground team and science support that we have now on the space station, we were able to get her done. About a month and a half later, we had one more SpaceX that came up, SpaceX 12. I love that picture because it looks like Christmas. But you have to understand, this is me doing some of the pressure checks after it docked. It takes a long time. We have to do pressure checks, we have to take out a bunch of equipment, and then we can unload this baby. So here is a super fast time lapse. We also have to wear some protective gear when we open it, just in case there's contamination. Luckily there was not, and so we got to unload that baby like a boss. And we don't go quite that fast. Would be cool if we could, though. In addition, on the Russian side of things, Fyodor was alone, so I had to get trained up on how to do the Progress vehicle, docking and undocking. Fyodor and I took care of one docking and one undocking of those vehicles. They're pretty neat. They have not just cargo, but they also bring us fuel and water, which is pretty darn important when you're in space. You guys have heard of a fisheye lens, right? Well, my nickname is Two Fish, so I called this the Two Fisheye time lapse. But we have this ginormous window called the cupola, and to look at it and just see the world go by is kind of a religious experiment. As far as experiments in general, we have all shapes and sizes, from these large experiments that take an entire rack bay. This is a biophysics one. The one right next door actually looks at combustion. So on orbit, instead of a normal flame that has convection, the flame actually burns outward, burns up all the oxygen around the fire, and then puts itself out. We need to understand this behavior in order to make engines and keep things safe on orbit. This one's super cool. It's called ELF, and it takes little balls of metal, levitates them with magnets, melts them with a laser, and then supercools them. We're able to create new, lighter, stronger alloys as a result. And so it's some fascinating research. This is our glove box. One of the experiments we were doing in there, the front isn't on it right in this picture, but it keeps us safe from the experiment and vice versa, the experiment safe from us. And we use that thing all the time for just countless experiments. Of course, we have to stay in shape. So we have a treadmill that has little bungee cords to keep us on the treadmill. The length of the bungee cord determines how much weight you're putting on that treadmill. We also have a resistive exercise device, which is kind of like a Bowflex on crack. It's isolated from the space station so that we can do everything, squat, bench, you name it, but we don't impart any loads on the space station. There's also a little bicycle that's kind of weird. You just hook your feet into it with those little bike shoes and then hold on to this little frame and you can ride the bike. You look a little weird, but it works. This is a MIT experiment where they built these robots that can fly around with gas jets, and then we have school kids actually program them. And then we have competitions to determine which logic is the best. Lots of changes to an astronaut's body when we're in orbit. One of the biggest changes is our eyes and our eyesight. So we have all sorts of experiments that we look at the eyesight and the vision changes as we go. One cool thing is that when you're doing ultrasounds, instead of that nasty blue goo that we have to use on Earth, we can actually just put a big old glob of water and it sticks to you, so it works as the on-orbit gel. And this is just a study. It looks like I'm a sausage casing, you know, on my leg. So I got a big old sausage leg. Let's see. We do some technology demonstrations, and in orbit without the effect of gravity, you can do different things. So this is using capillary action to actually create a CO2 scrubber on orbit. Actually worked out quite well. This is, I called it the cancer-seeking missile. It was a new drug that would go in and actually target antibodies of cancerous cells on some lung tissue that we grew. And instead of, you know, just dropping a nuke inside your body like chemo normally does, it actually targeted the bad cells, left the good ones alone. We always have to play with robots. This is a Japanese robot, so I had to bow, of course, to it and, you know, give it a good wave. I called it JAR, the Japanese awesome robot. And I made the Japanese control center say it like a pirate, JAR. We have the NanoRacks deployer. We actually, in about a 3-week period, deployed 41 nanosats. We load them into the Japanese module airlock and then put it out on an arm and puke those babies off. It's a great way to get technology quickly and cheaply into space. NanoRacks also has experiments all over the station. They range from elementary school up to, you know, companies and researchers. I was lucky enough to be on orbit when my high school, Centaurus from Louisville, Colorado, actually flew their experiment on board. We look at not only how to grow for long duration missions, but also we're looking at different ways to increase crop yields through fertilizers and light. This is a genes in space where we actually can take a sample on orbit, amplify the DNA, and then sequence that on board, which is pretty incredible. We do a lot of experiments outside the space station as well. This was a solar array that blew out like a party horn on New Year's Eve, just rolled out. It worked great. We couldn't get it to roll back in, so we had to kind of throw it overboard. And I got to do 2 EVAs with my buddy Peggy Whitson and our other buddy Thomas Pesquet getting us ready. The first one, we were going outside. That first step was kind of a doozy. Here's a little picture of it. It's kind of a long way down, but luckily you won't fall. We replaced a lot of equipment outside. One of the best shots that I love is you don't have an appreciation for how big the space station is, but that little, you can see her little legs kicking. There's Peggy way up there on one of the pieces of equipment. We actually had to do another EVA not too long thereafter. We had an emergency. One of our critical systems broke. So we went outside, put a few more systems on the space station to prep for commercial vehicles. Thomas, my buddy, waved at me, so I had to wave back. And then I had to get back to work. What a view. So there's us after the first EVA, and we were pretty happy. We had a problem with the suit, and Thomas was able to get us out the door. So crew Earth observation, one of the important things that we do is try to take pictures. We cover almost 95% of the populated regions on the planet with our orbit. And whether there's a cool, you know, sunset, sun glint off the water, different sea life, you have currents within the water that, depending on where the sun is, you can actually see those. Ice formations down in Patagonia, all over the world. It's amazing to see them from a completely different perspective. And that's really what we are afforded on the space station. This shows you some of the ice and different freezing on a lake in Canada. This is actually in the Red Sea, right next to the desert. Just incredible beauty. Mount St. Helens. Where'd the side of the mountain go? It's pretty darn neat to see just the colors and the vibrance that you see all over the planet. This is in Salt Lake City. This is the Bahamas. I never thought blue could be that blue, but it sure as heck is. That's in the desert. It looks like finely sanded wood grain. And then I'm from Colorado, so I had to find Mile High Stadium. Zoom in, you can see the orange and blue. And looking out the window, you know, seeing the ground and cities and different things on the earth is one thing. This is me trying to do a handheld time lapse. This is the moon going over a moon set, if you will. It changes your perspective on the world. It's just such awe-inspiring beauty that you really have to reevaluate your place in the universe. That little streak up at the top was SpaceX 11 re-entering. And there's yours truly looking out the window. You could find me there a lot because I was taking in the view. Sun takes 7 seconds to rise on orbit. We get them 16 times a day, so I tried to take a few of those pictures, as well as the amazing aurora. It was alive, just these green ribbons dancing across the sky. Such an amazing view. And obviously, every now and again, you get one of those sunsets that just inspires the heck out of you. So whether I was looking down at the Earth and seeing these incredible views or looking out at the stars, like I said, you just reevaluate your place. You realize how small a part we are of this greater whole. You can actually see the disks of the Milky Way, and then as we go around the Earth, you can watch them rotate. So a lot of times we had to do PR events. This one was the first 4K downlink from space, and they were asking me what my favorite movie was.
For me, it was definitely The Right Stuff. As a test pilot who, you know, Edwards was my second home. You know the start where he's like flying through the clouds and he's talking about there's a demon that lives on the mater. And then the plane crashes, it explodes, it goes to color. That's just so awesome. And then also Spaceballs, because we're basically flying at ludicrous speed right now.
It's true, 17,500 miles an hour. So I think this is the most important part. So when you're up there, I was like a 12-year-old boy on 2 cups of espresso in Disneyland for the first time. And I just had a great time. Whether I was giving myself a bad haircut, hanging on a bungee cord and watching movies with my buddies, we just had a blast. You find kid toys, you see how they react in orbit, and it's just, everything's just so fun. Even eating food. This is my favorite, coffee balls. I mean, coffee is great, but when you make a ball out of it, you celebrate the 4th of July with your buddy Peggy, you eat pudding. Like, that's, where else can you eat pudding like this? It's a big old gelatinous tower of yummy. We do have to clean up every now and again. We gotta vacuum things. Of course, I'm a Colorado boy, so I had to have my Bronco pants. And it was my 20th anniversary, so I married my wife again from orbit. My dog wasn't there, but I had to put him in the picture anyway. Velcro is pretty rough on your socks, so I figured I'd put some faces on it. This was a spacesuit that was made from squares from cancer kids all across the world, and that was a pretty special event. And then this, well, my name's Two Fish, so I had to swim with the fishes. Boom, uh-oh. But after all that fun is said and done, we had to go home, unfortunately. But I wanted to see my wife, so, you know, and my puppy. We closed up the hatch. It's about a 4-ish hour trip home. And once you do a few burns, you start seeing outside the window, it gets pink, and then it gets orange, and then you see little pieces of your heat shield coming by the window, and then it scorches over and it's black until your chute comes out. The chute is a little dynamic. You kind of spin around, but it's the landing that really gets you. Ready? Wait for it. Yeah. It hurts as much as it looks like it hurts. And so after 6 months of floating around without any gravity and then that landing, they actually help us out of the capsule, pick us up, take us over and put us in a chair so that we can call home and talk to the family. And then we have one more ceremony at the Kazakh airport where they put some totally awesome, I call them the Kazakhstan drinking jackets. They're like super cool robes with these super cool hats, and it's the last kind of big tradition that we do after landing. Yep, there I am, a big old lump of sack of potatoes. You know, parents, when you're carrying your kids and they're asleep and they weigh like 6 times more than they normally do, that was me. But I was awful happy because that was sure a fun ride. Here comes the cool jackets and hats. Yep. So I was honored to be up there with a great group of folks, my crew, but we are literally the last couple people in the thousands of people across the globe who come together to make space exploration happen. One team exploring together, and that's really how we have to do it, to do those great things that we really want to do. So with that, why don't folks come on up and ask me some questions, and I'll do my best to answer them.
Let's give Jack a big round of applause. We want to remind everybody that you can submit questions on Facebook Live. If you have a question here in the gallery, please come over here. We've got a microphone ready to go. So the Velcro eats the socks.
It eats the socks like a boss. And so my wife sent me new ones because I was like, all my socks are getting ruined. Send me some other socks. So those socks, only the ends got messed up, not the inside. So have you guys had those little troll eraser tops that have a little hair? And so my sock kind of looked like that, and Peggy was like, those are nasty. And I'm like, yeah, but they're fun. And so then I put a little smiley face on them, and she thought I was ridiculous most of the time. And I was, but it was cool looking, wasn't it?
Oh, it was great. It was great.
There you go.
So how important is the Velcro and the bungee straps and the gray tape that you guys use?
Oh, so important because everything floats away. And you have to get used to making sure that you put everything down and secure it before you walk away, or you come back and you'll never find it again.
All right, we've got a question from Facebook Live. Did you dream of becoming an astronaut when you were younger?
Absolutely. So when I was 6 years old, I visited my grandpa who worked at Johnson Space Center, saw that big old Saturn V and just fell in love. It's just like walking around the Air and Space Museum. You can't help but get excited about seeing these different pieces of history and not get inspired.
Cool. All right, I think we've got an audience question.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello. I was lucky enough to see the total solar eclipse that we just had.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you in the sky at that time?
Yes, I was. So,
Did you see anything special? You see so many of them as you're going around.
Well, we don't see an eclipse like that. That's just as rare up there as it is down here. When we could see, a partial obscuration of the sun, but the coolest thing was that there was this super dark black shadow that we saw during the second orbit that went across the U.S. and that was, we were kind of thinking, you remember snipe hunts when you're growing up and it's like you go out and look and then they go, ha, there's no such thing as a snipe. We were kind of not expecting a whole lot when we looked out the window, and when we saw how dark that spot was going across the U.S., it was pretty darn impressive. So we definitely got to see it. Took lots of pictures. Yes, ma'am.
All right, we've got another question from Facebook. Do you miss being in space?
All the time. If you could just package up my wife and send her up to orbit, I'd stay there forever. I just loved space.
All right, we've got another audience question here.
I was just, thank you. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the different paths to becoming an astronaut. Do you have to be a scientist? Are there other ways that you can get involved in space?
There's a ton of ways. My daughter goes to GWU, by the way. Do you go there?
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. So there are tons of ways. It used to be that you had to be a test pilot or you weren't going to be an astronaut. But now, as we go further into the cosmos, it's more important for us to have a diverse set of skills. And so we have doctors, we have scientists, we have all sorts of backgrounds. The most important thing about becoming an astronaut is that you have to find something you love, something that you're passionate about, and then work really hard at it. That way, if you become an astronaut, great. If you don't, you're loving what you do, and you're helping change humanity.
Great. All right, we've got another audience question.
What was your favorite thing about being in space?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. I love my food floating. I love floating around. I love looking out the window. But you know what's the coolest is that every day you got up and you got to do science and you felt like you were part of a big team that was changing things for the better. So that was the coolest part.
Okay. All right,
we've got another shirt, by the way.
Got another audience question here.
Hello, did you have to study Russian language before going to International Space Station?
Да, конечно.
It was hard?
It was very hard. So Peggy Whitson, who I flew with, she said only the first 10 years of Russian language is hard, and then it becomes easy. I'm still waiting for it to become easy. It was very difficult, but I loved the Russian culture and Russian people. We just got back last week from a trip to Star City, and we were able to say hello to all our friends and instructors there.
Awesome. All right, I think we've got another audience question coming up.
Hi. I know you mentioned that you've dreamed about going to space, but what was the spark that got you up there?
You know, seeing that rocket really got me inspired. I think, I'll try not to cry, but when my dad died when I was at the academy, he told me, I dare you to dream. And that really lit the fire. So I think it was that last talk with Dad.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay. Got another audience question?
How did your grandma send you your socks?
How did my grandma send me my socks? Well, actually, it was my wife that sent me those socks. But they were totally new when I got them, and then the Velcro messed them all up, and then I put the smiley faces and the sad faces on them. So she sent them up on one of the SpaceX in a care package, and then I could wear them. Kind of like my Broncos pants and my Captain America pants. Those came up from my wife as well.
All right, we've got another question from Facebook. What was your first thought when you saw Earth from space?
Oh my gosh, it was 8 minutes after launch. I looked out the window, and you know, as a pilot, I've been pretty high before, and you can see the curvature of the Earth, but being up there, you could see basically this little thin blue line that had all the life we know of encapsulated within it, and it was mind-blowing. So my first thought was just, wow.
All right, well, I'd like to thank Jack Fischer for joining us today. Let's give him a big round of applause. We'd also like to thank our sponsor, Boeing, for bringing this to you today. Thanks for watching.